Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Scaling Impact conversation. Today, I'm very glad to have a dear friend with me, Nicholas. But before I get started, I want to make sure that we are indeed live on the internet. So let me just make sure we do. Just give me 1 second. Just
confirm that we're not talking to 0 listeners.
yeah, that happened once.
I believe it, yeah.
All right, yeah, we are indeed live. So great. A little bit of tech things, but should be okay in 1 minute. All right, we're all set, Nicholas. So welcome, and if you're joining for the first time, just a quick introduction on what we do. We Scale Impact. We work with organizations around the world, helping entrepreneurs to scale impact. This is based on our own experience running enterprises in emerging markets. Last few months ago, we launched a series of conversations around scale and impact. And each month, we invite a funder or an innovator to discuss their experiences while scaling impact, the goals, the challenges, and the best practices. And every episode will deliver important takeaways to help innovators at any stage of their impact journey to scale more effectively and efficiently. We've had 3 episodes in the past. The first episode, we spoke to Dr. Ritu Verma. She's the founder of Ankur Capital, an early stage investment fund. In the second episode, we spoke to Carolina Kwok from Brand Challenges Canada. And in the third episode, we hosted Jagdeep Gambhir, founder of Karma Health. And for those of you joining us for the first time, I'm Ashwin Naik, one of the founding partners. And today we are delighted to have Nicholas Sowden, former CEO and current board member at Penda Health. Penda Health is an award-winning startup that is transforming healthcare in East Africa by building a chain of outpatient health clinics that offer evidence-based medical care and unparalleled member experience at great affordable rates. Nicholas, welcome. Great to have you and great to be talking to you. Let's start from the beginning. Walk us through the journey of starting Penda Health. Why did you choose Africa? Why East Africa? Why primary care? The whole story behind the story.
Okay, all right. Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Lovely to have a conversation with you, Ashwin. Yeah, so I moved to Nairobi in 2009. I was working for another early stage venture doing solar panels. And in the process of doing that, I fell in love with Nairobi. It became home. And so to answer that question straight out the gate, why Nairobi? Because it's home. In the process of doing tough stuff, I met my co-founder, Stephanie, and I also met my other co-founder, Jonathan. So we were all running separate businesses in Nairobi and started spending a lot of time together just over coffee, having conversations about our different businesses, complaining about our investors and funders, and trying to figure out where to get good employees and all that stuff, and became quite close. So then when we started Penda, we ended up kind of all reconnecting and starting the business together. Why primary care? The reason, the vision of Penda is try to bring really good healthcare to Africa. Today, life expectancy and most health indicators are not as good as the rest of the world, and we wanted to help Africa catch up. We wanted to help our home catch up. And we looked at all the different places to try to enter into the sphere, and we felt like without functioning primary care, it was really difficult to do all of the other things and actually get them to the people. Breakthroughs in like healthcare financing, it doesn't do much without primary care, really, without somebody to deliver the healthcare that the financing is doing. Same for most of healthcare technology. And in our market, trust is really big and really important. And people want to come face to face and see a human and know that you're real. And so we thought without the foundation of really good, honest, trustworthy primary care, it would be really difficult for Kenya and the rest of Africa to catch up to the rest of the world. And we kind of got the team together. We sort of begged, borrowed, and stole. Our original idea was actually women's health, not family health care. And we opened our first clinic within, I don't know, I think like 2 months of starting or something like that. I think there was a lesson there that served us well of trying to get open and in front of your customers really quickly. And we did that. And literally by the end of the first day, we were no longer a women's health clinic. We were a family medical center, Ashwin. And basically the first whole year of Penda was taking feedback from our customers. And they told us really loudly on the first day, if you don't take care of my kids, I'm not coming to you. And we did a lot of that listening. And that was one of the keys to success for us. Let me pause there. That's the early years. Shall I continue with the journey, or do you want to interrupt and follow on with more questions? I'm live on the show with no host. I'm just going to take this any direction that I want to go.
No, I'm here. I'm listening. So I think it's interesting that you talk about how you pivoted from day one. Tell us a little bit about how this impacted your own plans. You started off as a women's health business, and suddenly the customer is saying something else. How did you move your organization?
You know what? To tell a quick story from my business before, at the solar company, our customers really wanted to use solar panels to play TV, to be able to watch TV. And I say this with all, like, I was so arrogant, but we really wanted them to use the solar panels to have lighting, to do reading. And we thought that reading was better than TV. And that business ended up struggling because we weren't listening to our customers. What kind of crap is that, to think that we know what they want better than them? And in this business, a lot of the motivation was to deliver family planning and sexual and reproductive health. From early market research, people told us open the women's clinic. And by the end of the first day, they said, we're not going to get family planning or sexual reproductive health with you if you're not taking care of our kids. And so that evolution ultimately was pretty easy. I think we had in our DNA from the beginning to let the customer drive. We did that business as a for-profit, not a nonprofit. And the main reason why is because we wanted our customers to be in the driver's seat. And so I think as they gave us more and more feedback over that first year, most of it was actually really easy to listen to and really worked. Oh my God, looking back on it, every single thing they told us to do was the right move, man. I mean, at some point they were like, you guys need to open a hospital. And I was checking my pockets and there wasn't enough money in it. But besides that, everything they told us was right. Ashwin, you might be on mute if you're trying to talk to me again. I'm just going to start telling stories. You got to be careful, man. All right, I will start telling stories. So the first year of business for us was all about, and because I know this is the next section we're getting to, the first year of business was all about taking patient feedback, taking customer feedback. And then by the end of the first year or so, we had kind of one branch, family doctor, that was giving pretty good healthcare, that was pretty affordable. Customers were coming back, and it was time to scale a little bit. We went out to the investment market then and said, hey, we've got a business. We're opening 1,000 clinics next year, or some ridiculous pie chart, right? And they kind of told the investment market said, no, there's no way. You're not investment ready. This was a long time ago. That was 2012. And so we ended up setting a milestone around what we thought a really good, like sufficient proof of a business model, scalable business model was. And we thought it was 3 medical centers offering good care, making a profit, and having customers that liked us and were coming back a lot. And so it took us 4 years, you guys. Penda spent a really long time and got this close. I mean, really this close to going out of business before we cracked those 3 medical centers making a profit. And we finally did. And then we went back to the investment market and were able to raise our Series A after that. And the business really changed then from a product development business to one that was focused on scaling up.
Great. So, Nicholas, you shared with us three very interesting sort of learnings. One is listening to your customers. Second is coming up with a very ambitious goal and then realizing it's not going to work or not going to be funded. And third, the real challenge of setting up something like this. You think you could do something in a year and it takes like 4 years. Is your strategy, was your strategy always to look with the customers and define what to do next? Was that true across your 8-10 years of the journey with Penda?
Yeah, that was always part of our DNA. We put that on our values as a business, and we made people decisions based on our values. So I think we did that piece well. However, there was actually the listening to the customers in terms of developing the product was the easier part of it. The harder part was the people-facing stuff, and then all of the internal operation stuff. Getting really good family care, and family care is big. You have medicine, you have equipment, you have people. It's a complicated business, and people's lives are at stake. So it wasn't an easy business to be delivering the product every single time and delivering it at like incredibly low cost. So that first year was more about patient feedback, customer feedback. The second, third, and fourth year were a lot of people and were a lot of operations. And then from 2016, when we hit that milestone of 3 branches, funding came in, then it was all about scale, which presented kind of a whole nother set of problems. But then, yeah, even as we were scaling and things, we kept customer feedback core always to what we were doing, and then added more and more and more of employee feedback to that kind of listening process.
Just this small remark that you made that funding came and things changed. Tell us what changed. What I mean, if you can share, what was sort of the things that changed within the organization and also in the business?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, looking back on it, investment came to us at the right time. We weren't ready to scale earlier. And so we were able to raise when we were ready to scale, and we were able to get, so that actually, I think, was really healthy. That was a kudos to the investment market in East Africa. And man, Ashwin, everything changed. We went from this really detailed focus on these 3 branches and knowing every single employee by name and really being into the details of it to wanting to get, I think our original goal was, wanting to grow really fast. And so we had to completely step out of it. You create sort of a layer of management for the first time where there's people who are growing and there's people who are executing. We had to hire people to open branches, to hire employees at 5-10 times the rate we had ever done. The whole thing changed. And, created a bunch of departments that we didn't have. It changed everything. And those were funner times. We made more progress there. The last couple of years of getting the product right were a real slug. And the things we did then, it was now like, hey, this works. We've done it 3 times. We know this works. Now we need to make it like a system that happens every single time. But that was a really fun couple years after raising.
Right. And, while you were building your organization from 3 units now, how many clinics do you have now?
22.
22, yeah. So, I'm sure there will be some big wins or mistakes that happened along the way in this journey. Anything that you can reflect on, things that you could do differently or things that you think went really well with the Penda journey?
Yeah. Let me start with a few of the good things. We kept ourselves completely pen and paper until we moved into the scale-up mode. I mean, not literally pen and paper and Microsoft Excel. But we kept ourselves incredibly low tech for those early years, and it allowed us to be really nimble. And then when we started scaling, we did, I had nothing to do with it, but we did a wonderful job of mapping out all the user requirements for the entire organization. We built a really good electronic medical record, which was the ERP of our business. And that served us. I mean, it's the same EMR till today. It served us really, really well. So we did that well. In 2015, 2016, our chief medical officer started investing heavily in a technology that paid big dividends for us. For us, it was called clinical decision support. It's a system within our EMR that helped our medical providers do the right thing every single time and make sure that they don't forget things, especially since they see an incredibly broad range of patients. And that technology, it was one that it was very difficult to see the tangible benefits of for a really long time, but we stuck with it. And in the end, I think we feel now like it's a sustainable competitive advantage. No one else in the market has it. Very few people on planet Earth have it. And it makes us give better healthcare every single time. And then another thing we did is that the last thing I'll say that I think we did really well was that in early days, we tracked Net Promoter Score with our patients, which I know many people use. And we just copied the regular system, 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend? The thing that we did then is we used that exact same system with our employees. About 4 times a year, sometimes twice a year, it ranged. We would send the exact same question to all of our employees on a scale of 1 to 10. How likely are you to recommend another employee to come work here? And I'm telling you, man, the scores were brutal. We got torn apart by our employees. And at the end of every time, we would get all this feedback. And Stephanie, my co-founder, would make a set of commitments to the company. In the next 3 or 6 months, before we do the next thing, we will have delivered these. And then the next time around, we had to report and say if we delivered them, and we never delivered all of them. And, I've talked about this idea to kind of, dozens of businesses over the years. And many people ask, aren't they always, something along the lines of, aren't they always going to be complaining? Or right. Doesn't that help them gossip more or talk to each other? And it makes people complain. You get confronted with a lot of information, especially if you do it actually anonymous, that's hard to handle. But I guess we found that by doing it continually, employees didn't have this experience of filling out the form and then walking away thinking, why the hell am I still working here? I just put all this bad stuff down. Each time I think people thought, well, was it better or worse than the last time? Did we learn more? Did they actually deliver on some of the stuff we did? So I guess we ended up feeling like all the negative things about you as an employer, they're there, they exist, they're happening. And this for us is a really good way to know about it sooner and do something about it. And it's served us really well till today.
Great. No, I think these two things look like they are something which all of us struggle with. One is clearly investing in technology. When is the right time to invest? And from what I'm hearing you say is that there is the opportune time where you're all in, and then from what I know about your business, it also held you in good stead during the pandemic because you could move a lot of things online. So investing in good technology, good clinical decision support, the scaffolding of the business in good times. And the second one, this is amazing. The NPS of an employee and then taking their metric to improve. And there's a question related to this in the comments. When you move from the 3 branches to multiple branches, was there a big shift in culture as well?
Yeah, there was. There really was. And there was actually a couple of them. Exactly the one you would expect happened immediately when many of the senior staff switched all their focus to opening new branches. Employees were left saying, hey, where'd you guys go? And I think that was hard, and we lost some really good employees during that period, and that wasn't our best. There was a stretch of growing really, really fast and hiring too many people, and we lost a set of quality with the type of people that we hired. That was hard. One of the ones that always stuck with me is that there was a stage in the business till today. We never have been successful hiring team leaders or branch managers we have like 25 employees at every branch. So the team leader that runs that branch is a really important position. They're there, they make a lot of decisions, they manage all these people, they kind of have people under them. And we tried hiring people from healthcare, from other sectors. We picked the sectors that had the best customer service and treated their employees the best and tried to recruit people from there. Honestly, none of that really worked well. Once we got to the time that we had something like 10 branches, we were able to grow our team leaders from within. And team leaders that got promoted from within were, I mean, there was a time we did the math where I think internally promoted team leaders were something like 90 to 100% of them were still in the position or had gotten promoted. And team leaders that were hired from outside were something like less than 50%. We really, really struggled with it. And so the stage of growth where you're growing really fast, but you don't have enough people within your systems to be promoting from within was probably the hardest stage culturally for us. And yeah, those are some of the really big changes. But the changes, it's a really good question. There was a lot of changes. It was a wild time. And frankly, we didn't manage it perfectly.
But you are touching upon, the key pieces of any scaling struggle, right? Technology, people, and how do you get feedback both from customers and employees? If you were to look back now, and these three clearly are great takeaways for entrepreneurs, but is there like a checklist that you have for your next gig saying, I'm going to do this and this for sure to make sure that the impact is what I want?
So there's a question you had sent over email about, one of the things I learned or what I would repeat again, and how that impact shifted. And for me personally, and this is also true for my co-founders, our impact, the way we felt about our impact really swung from being customer focused only to being majority employee focused. Ashwin, at the end, we had, right now we have something like 500 employees within the company. And, we do a lot of things wrong, but I feel really good about those jobs. And now there's like a Penda alumni network in Nairobi of these people that worked in us and did these other things. The top of my checklist, the top 3, 4, 5 things in my checklist will all be about treating employees better, focusing on them more, making them more important than customers from day one. So there's a big section of my checklist that's really employee focused. I will keep the focus on letting customers drive. That's really great. I think I learned a lot about focus. In Penda's early years, we were not as focused as we need to. And there's now amazing books written by incredible people out there about how to look at your assumptions and focus on the right ones first. And the lean startup methodology has influenced my thinking on a lot of different things. So I will try to do a lot of that all again. That sticks with me. On the African continent, I will invest in our government relations sooner than later. I think that was a big lesson learned from this business. And yeah, I think there's probably a lot about the difference between vanity metrics and the metrics that really mattered. And I personally, on our co-founding team, focused way too much on vanity metrics the last 2 businesses. And I think I'll try to be a little bit more disciplined about that this time. And yeah, there's probably a few other things, but I should actually write the checklist down. There's a few of them kicking around in my head.
Yeah, no, these are unique because you're talking about things that typically don't show up in any other checklist, right? For example, maybe I can get you to dig a little bit deeper into these 3 points. The first one is government relationships. How important is it for younger stage companies to build that connect, build those relationships as they scale?
Yeah. So every country in Africa is different, though primarily there are governments that are more involved, more authoritarian, and what they say speaks. And most of the countries are ones where there's lots of different power centers, different government bodies, different places, and different people in different places. And in the countries where the government's word is more clear, businesses are able to go, get the right meeting, pitch the vision, and the government says yes or no, and it's relatively straightforward. Rwanda is a great example. Ethiopia is a little bit like this. And the rest of the countries, in the early years, you can move so fast. Nobody's really checking on you. Nothing's really clear. You can run wild, and it's like early stage entrepreneur's dreamland. You can really move quick and do a lot of things, and that's really cool, and it's really fun. Then as soon as you get to a certain size, businesses hit a place where they get noticed by the government. And now, rather than sort of one government voice, there's 90 different government bodies that all need to have a say in it. And I just learned that there's a real attitude that a lot of people bring to the government, which frankly it's a condescending one. It's one of our technology is good and our product is good and we're bringing something good to the people, and you should make this easy for us, government. You should make the regulations clear. You should approve our things faster. This like kind of arrogance and should thing that is particularly a Western thing. It's a white person thing, but also as an African entrepreneur thing. That attitude is really negative. It doesn't serve you well. And once you get to a certain size, the government's say is final, and they will be coming to say. And so I think in early stages on the continent, most businesses can operate really quickly without very much government engagement. But I think once you've found product market fit, or once you're starting to gear up to start growing really quick, government relations is a place where you don't see the benefits very tangibly, but they are strong and varied. They're defensive and offensive. And my next one's I'll invest earlier.
Yeah. No, I think it makes sense, particularly in sectors like healthcare, education, where there is a overlap between what the private sector does and what the public sector does. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you spoke about vanity metrics. What does that look like? I mean, for us, for everybody who's starting the business, everything looks like a great metric. How do you differentiate what is vanity from what is real impact metric?
Yeah, I think the easiest pitfall that I've fallen into is growth metrics, just like more numbers, more sales, more revenue, without looking at how often those customers are coming back. Same thing for employees, looking at employee growth without looking at internal promotions or how happy those employees are. So for me, that's the source of most of them. We would do discounts and get more customers. We would do marketing and get more customers. We would open a new branch in a new area and get more customers. But we needed to find ways to be able to measure whether we're actually doing a good job and growing in the right ways. For us, net promoter score was excellent beginning to end. It's a metric that many people use in many different businesses, so it's easier to explain to people. It had a lot of advantages. That worked really, really well for us. I was about to cite our profit margins, but even within gross margin, there were ways that in the early days when your financial systems aren't as good and you're not doing LIFO and FIFO the way you should be and all of that, you could look at your gross margins and not calculate for wastage, not calculate for leakage, not calculate for stock expiry in our case. And so numbers were looking really good. And then sort of December audit, you need to change the balance of your book. And we would throw a lot of costs into the month of December. And that type of stuff is what I'm talking about when I try to get us to have more real metrics. I can't say that we were always the wisest at finding what the real metrics were, but I definitely fell prey to listening to vanity metrics too much.
Right. And as you are going through this journey of figuring out what is real metric, what is vanity metrics, when do you build relationship with government, when you don't, looking at employee satisfaction and at the same time client satisfaction, building the business and all that. Did you get support from the ecosystem? Did you have mentors? Did you have advisors? How did that help you?
Yeah, gosh, we were really lucky beginning to end. All three of my co-founders had come off a business that had done well. So former investors and bosses and colleagues were willing to help. We did a crowdfunding in the early days and got some supporters behind us because they put a little bit of money in. We were a business that did, we're able to take grant capital and investment capital. And so in the early days, we were able to pull some good advisors from both worlds. We were kind of advised to more people. We entered a network, which is how Ashwin and I know each other, which is the Innovators in Health network. And they were phenomenal. In a period of about a year, we filled up like, I think maybe 5 out of 6 seats on an advisory board, 5 out of 6 of them coming from introductions from Innovations in Health. So it's kind of a global I don't think incubator is the right word, but a global network of innovators. And they gave a lot of really good support. And they helped us raise a lot of capital also. And then basically we lucked out with our Series A investor, Ashwin. Novastar Ventures, based in Nairobi, led our Series A. And in a controversial moment among raising capital from them, we asked them to switch who the lead investor would be. We wanted a woman on our board. And we got this woman named Sapna Shah, who's a partner at Novastar. And man, 5 years later, she is just the best investor. She's been really good to us beginning to end. And they ended up leading our Series B also. We stuck with them 2 rounds in a row. So, you know what, we felt we were really lucky beginning to end to get a lot of good advice.
Nice. So innovator, what was it called? IIH, Innovator? I don't even know what it is called now. But
is it Innovators in Health? I think it's Innovations.
Innovations in Health. But they used to be called something else before that when they first started.
That's right. What was the long acronym? Oh man, I'm forgetting it now. I know there's some people chat who are from it. Well, that's embarrassing. It did have a long acronym before.
Yeah.
It is Innovations in Healthcare.
Yeah, Innovations, yeah. So, you know, from this informal, or let's say the formal network that you had, and from the investors on the board, did you actively go out and build like an advisory board outside of these formal circles? Like, for example, you or Stephanie, did you have access to people who were from the business, or maybe people of scaled businesses?
Yeah, so we had kind of an informal network, and I think we did really well to keep them involved. There's a thing we've all experienced where you get advice from someone great, and then you don't really follow up for 6 months. And you try to hit them up again in 6 months when you have a burning question and the connection sort of isn't the same, or their ownership of the business isn't the same. So we put work in throughout to keep our best advisors, you know, kind of involved. Then when we raised real equity, we put, let me be honest about this. We put together a formal board in around the time of our Series A. And we were never able to get our formal board, we were never able to get our formal board to be as valuable as those informal sessions were. Our formal board did a really great job of making sure we did things right, having tough conversations, tough decisions, making sure the budget was right, following statutory agreements. The individuals on our board are all superb. We got really lucky. But the board format of being kind of scheduled a year in advance, and we had sort of a set way of reporting on it, and there's some formality that came with it. We were never able to get our board to be the group of people that we needed to go to when like a big decision or a crisis was happening. And so what we ended up doing was keeping basically an informal advisory board throughout the years, scaling up and down the amount of effort that we would put into it. And our board members were on the informal advisory board. So it wasn't a thing of, you know, our board members sucked. But,
Right.
you know, we never got our board to do what you want it to do, what you want a really great, high conflict, engaged board to do. And so I think because of that, and probably because we're in healthcare, which is highly regulated and the government's highly involved, because of that, we kept an advisory board informally beginning to end. and it was worth it. It was always worth it for us.
Yeah. I think you made a very important distinction there of formal board, which probably is looking after compliances, regulatory, and mitigating risk, which is their job as a board member, financial and otherwise. But having access to people who've been through this journey, who can advise you on making the tough calls, and there are lots of tough calls during this journey. So I think it's important point. But have things changed? I remember 10 years ago, it was very tough to raise money. It was very tough to, like you said, hire people. But has the landscape changed now? I see that East Africa is generating a lot of interest from investors and ecosystem.
So things have changed since COVID-19, but over the last 10 years, they've changed wildly. I remember in 2012, we hustled for a year to raise $100K of convertible debt. And pre-COVID, I would hear of 5-6 businesses a year that would raise $1 million of seed money in Nairobi. It wildly changed over the 10 years. When we started, I don't know how many investors we were talking about, but active, probably less than 10. And now there's something like 70 active. So, I mean, it really has changed. And in different sectors, high, medium, and low, there's more accelerators now. There's way more talent. And when I say talent, what I mean is there's way more experienced talent, because all of these startups have failed or made it, and those people spun off and did other startups. So the ecosystem has really exploded in all directions. And I'm a little bit out of the loop, but since COVID-19 hit, it seems as though investment here has shrunk, I would guess almost by a factor. We're seeing investments still happening, but mostly smaller amounts, earlier stage businesses. We're seeing good, solid businesses starting to not be able to raise capital and go out of business. So I think things are in a tough moment for funding right now.
Mm-hmm. But these are interesting inflection points, right? More money is coming into the continent, into the geography. People are becoming more open to entrepreneurship. Does this mean that people will aim higher? You see the appetite for taking big risks now? People are. Is your 1,000 clinic idea now the right time?
I guess I'm just so nervous about this drawback in investment that we've seen since COVID. I was on a call for another business that I'm on the board of last week, and the investors on the board sort of just said, hey, I think this is the right plan. This is the right way to scale up, you guys. Feeling good about the business, but I think you should wait until COVID's over. And the entrepreneur was like, what do you mean until COVID's over? Like, that's not even a practical, and that was really their opinion. They probably wouldn't invest. I was in California recently, and they seem to have, really handled things well. And people are getting back to business and spending a lot more. And that's not really what we're seeing on the ground in Nairobi now, or most of East Africa. We've probably got another year of on and off restrictions coming back and forth. And so I'm nervous about right now. And that's really like making it hard for me to step back and answer your real question. To answer your real question, if you had asked me that in March of last year, I would have said absolutely yes. I would have said absolutely yes. And ourselves, we were gearing up for like a no, that's not true, $25 million Series C or something like that. And right now we're raising a $7 million Series C. So the pandemic has fundamentally changed everything for at least a little while.
Right. Yeah. I think if you factor in the pandemic, clearly there are unexpected shifts in the way we plan. But what you're saying is overall the environment has become much more sort of conducive to do what you want to do, right? So that's great
Absolutely.
to hear.
Absolutely.
And just putting this in context of your Penda journey, what was the biggest constraint? Was money the bottleneck? People, hiring, government? What was the big bottleneck if you had the resources to overcome that, what could that be?
Yeah. You know what I think the biggest one was? Let me tell a story. We had an investor who had built a very similar business to ours in the United States. Fantastic guy named Jason Williams. He was a clinician himself. He opened a family care practice. He grew it to 70 and then 100 branches and sold the thing for $500 million or something. Did really well. And he turned into an investor of ours, and we got close to him. And we would do these phone calls where he would kind of say, "Guys, I don't understand why this is taking so long. Like, do 1, 2, 3, get the thing delivered and it'll be fine." He would tell us, I don't understand why you have a full-time employee on supply chain at this stage. You should be able to like just monthly make your whatever. I don't know why. And he was really like, he was perplexed by why we had so many employees and why we didn't. And he came and visited, and he spent kind of 3-4 days with our staff going to branches, hanging out afterwards. And he was like, "I get it. You guys have to build everything. You have to build everything. In more developed markets, you order your t-shirts on a website and they show up on time and they're perfectly made, and you do your marketing campaign. Right. Here, you can still get 3 different quotes and see the content of the material and whatever." And I think that was true with training of our employees. I think that was true with recruiting. It was definitely true with location search. Investment wasn't as developed here. We had to spend a lot more time on investment than you would in other places. In London, you do due diligence from term sheet signed to money deployed in like 6 weeks. Here it's 6 months if you go fast. In order to run our business, we had to build another like 8, 9 businesses. And some of them we considered then spinning off into other things. Maybe we will one day. So I guess like the maturity of all the support networks and industry associations and supporters and investors and customers and the government and all of that, them not being delivered meant them not being as mature meant that in order to run a complex business with physical brick and mortar stock, people, equipment, a very complex business, we just had to do many, many things. That I think that was probably the biggest constraint.
Yeah. I hear you. I think most of the people who are operating in emerging markets will relate with what you are saying, particularly in the primary care or urgent care or models where the ticket size is so small, right? It's not a gigantic hospital that you put in and people will come. Right. So in a way, it's not an advantage to be a first mover in this market. I think it's better to stay when somebody builds something and then come in and do this. So I think at the same time, it also means that you will have to plan for longer cycles, longer deployment cycles, longer hiring cycles, longer raising cycles, which hopefully people give credit, they put their value on those longer cycles. Like you said, Jason, I've met him a couple of times. I can imagine how frustrating it must be for him to not see things moving like that, right? So yeah. So I think that's a great point. And now that you are thinking about your next gig or next business idea, would you consider doing it in the same geography? Why not go to some other markets?
No, most definitely the same geography, and just for the same reason. Nairobi's home. I love this city. I love my friends and family here. I love the people. The next business will be here. I will say, though, on a little bit more thoughtful side, I do think that we're seeing lots of great examples of tech businesses that can be run from anywhere in the world and have customers in different places. And we do have fabulous talent in Kenya. So many of my ideas that I think about now are things where we leverage the people here and build a business here, but that might not be where our customers are. Cross-border is a little bit different now. And so that might be our customers might be in Kenya, they might not be.
Right. And one question that is very interesting, and I missed this from Rajesh Kumar, is that given your market where the ability to pay is fairly limited, right? People are struggling
Sure.
to pay for health. How do you even design a market strategy? How do you plan on penetrating this market and capturing that?
Yeah. So we opened the business with our prices, ultimately doing a pricing strategy that was trying to be lower cost than the alternative. And we ended up with prices that were probably 25% lower than our prices today. So we priced too low early and were able to raise gradually over time. And that wasn't so tricky. So I don't feel like that was a big mistake. In early days, we took our best, most educated guess at what our long-term pricing would be and basically raised the prices to there. And then, really only raised them kind of 10, 20% over the next 7 years or something like that. So, inflation really. So I think we ended up taking a relatively decent guess there. And I think that was a good strategy. It wouldn't have been wise to keep growing with prices that weren't full price. And I think we probably got lucky on our guess being pretty close to what the end guess was. But that was really important to us. Relatively early, trying to guess what your long-term prices would be and just charging that from day one, even if it's lower. The other thing I'll say that for us, and it's very relevant to healthcare, and it's relevant to a lot of sectors, is that a mix of payers was fabulous. We had cash payers. We had payers that paid at the end of the month. They paid higher, but you had to go chase after them and collect the money. And we did everything we could to get corporate sponsorships, to get members, to get people that pay on a monthly basis. In our financial model, our CFOs all loved having a mix of different types of revenue payments. And that's in terms of pricing and in terms of kind of how and the guaranteedness of it. So that type of diversification doesn't fit every business, but for us, it was helpful. Woo! And there were times the government payer would go down, but the cash business was full. We saw several businesses come and go out of business by only focusing on one type of payer, and then something hits and that type of sector goes down. So that was really good for us.
Great. Now, Nicholas, I think there's so many amazing things. Continue this conversation for another hour, but I didn't realize we are close to the last few minutes of this session. So maybe I can invite our viewers to ask some questions. But in the meanwhile, let me thank you for your time, and it's great to reconnect with you and hearing so many interesting examples. And these are not, like I said earlier, these are not typical business challenges, but these are really system challenges. Developing the infrastructure while you're developing the challenge, comparing the Western markets versus the local reality challenges. So, and these are things that anybody who's in the emerging markets will have to deal with. So thank you for sharing your insights. And what I would take away from this are two important things that you shared. One is the NPS for employees, which obviously makes sense, but how do you formalize that as you go in? And second is, how do you build that tech platform at the right time, not too early, not too late, so that when you scale, you really have the scaffolding in place. So thank you very much, and thanks to our audience for joining us. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will have this recording and the previous recording as well that you can watch. And we will have another guest next month, the last Thursday. And before we end, there is one last question, Nicholas, if you have the time. What's the one thing that Penda did in the first year that in hindsight was a big mistake?
You're killing me. And Ashwin, just an absolute pleasure to be here today. Thanks for having me. You know what it was? Sorry, I need to answer this in two parts. One of the things that we could have done much better at Penda is investing more earlier in our diversity in the organization and our inclusion of customers. I'm a white co-founder. My co-founders are white. This isn't the country I was born in. Our customers are, and our employees are. And we did a fabulous job with our diversity beginning to end. With that said, we should have invested sooner. We should have reported more publicly. I think we could have done a better job with it. It's something I'm really passionate about. It served us well, and it should have served us better. The reason I say that is because I think the number one mistake we made in the first year is that we had a very senior early employee, but borderline co-founder, and they weren't. We didn't have a good, healthy business relationship. We weren't speaking honestly. We weren't talking well. We had gossip. It just wasn't healthy. And I think I personally could have managed it much better, been much more direct, much more sooner. And ultimately, I should have realized that it wasn't working well. And we weren't able to break through. And it wasn't working for that employee, and it wasn't working for us either. And I think I should have sooner and better realized that this wasn't working. And even though it was a wonderful Kenyan employee for an organization that's really focused on having deep Kenyan leadership, we should have parted ways sooner. It took us too long, and that wasn't very good.
Great. No, I think that's an important learning as well. Planning diversity thoughtfully, but at the same time, making sure that things are not moving. Things will not move at some point or the other. Making that call quickly. Before we leave, I also want to invite all of you to join us for the next month's episode, where we have a guest from USAID. Grace Kim will join 26th at the same time. Please mark your calendars and join us. But thank you, Nicholas.
Grace is wonderful. Everybody tune in for next one.
Perfect. So we'll love to have you back as audience. But thank you very much for joining, Nicholas, and hope to see you soon.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.